Okay, so let's sit in an appropriate manner. We'll sit as though we found a proper spot where we can be calm and still and not move around too much, and where we can begin to stop this leak of energy left, right, and center. We can begin to bring the attention inwards, first of all, to the body and the posture, upright, relaxed, with the head tilted slightly forwards, with the back straight, with the arms relaxed by the side of the body, hands in the lap. Making sure that if we're not sitting cross-legged, then that both our soles of our feet are properly on the ground, and that the ground is not cold, but we have something under our feet if it's cold. There's a sense of calm, a sense of clarity, relaxation, a sense of, again, being attentive, not being distracted, and also actually the overarching sort of feeling also is one of how to put this? There's a kind of it's like a beautiful radiance that you find sometimes when you're outdoors, and the sun is not at its height, it's not at its strongest, that's a bit too strong, but morning or evening light, and there's already warmth in the air, in the sun, but it's not too dazzling, it's not too bright. There's a kind of a glow. So there's that sense that there's a glow of one's inner confidence and inner goodness. Yeah, inner goodness, basic goodness. Not good against bad, not that kind, just basic goodness. Like the warmth and the radiance of the sun, which is not good or bad, it's not for or against. You can't say, oh, the light of the sun is against the darkness of the night. That's a bit, it's going too far. We don't need to say that. It's just good. It's just basically good. It's highly useful, and also life-giving and nourishing, like that. So anyway, we sit, and then from being still and calm, naturally, something that we all have, whether we like it or not, it arises, this kind of basic sense of being at home and a basic sense of goodness, basic sanity, we might say, when we slow down and begin to pay attention. You could say it's a kind of environmental generosity, environmental kindness, the starting at home with oneself. And I guess if we're sincere about it, then there's a kind of osmosis effect. It affects the environment in a harmonious way. It benefits the people around us, which is wonderful, Something the world needs, isn't it? Wherever we are, whether at home or whether in the metro or whether whatever, alone. So there's a sense of being at home and a sense of goodness, sense of confidence, also a sense of openness. which comes with the goodness. There's a sense of openness. What does this mean? Simply put, it means that in our practice, we're not trying to erect even more barriers between ourselves and others. They're already enough. So here, we're willing to dissolve the barriers between ourselves and others. And this is very helpful because one of the main issue, the main problem, the main cause of our suffering, according to Lord Buddha, is this holding on and grasping at me, at a self, at a real solid sense of a I, a me, a mine that we tenaciously hold on to and guard it. A sense of identity, me. So as long as there's that sense of me, there will be some slight uneasiness always going on in the background in our life. Why? Because if there's a me, then there's always something, is there not, to be done for me. Something to push away, something to grasp, something to get, something to bring into our sphere of influence, something to push away, isn't it? We're kind of, the me is a little bit of a master of manipulation that way. And it's uneasy because we're never sure if we're going to be successful or not in getting what we want or pushing away what we don't want. So anyway, here we're practicing more a sense of letting go rather than trying to get hold of anything. We already have enough baggage. One way to begin to let go of me is to focus on what other people, other beings are experiencing and going through. So what are they going through? Well, I'm sure all of us who keep our eyes and ears open sometimes not only hear the cries, but can see the suffering of the world in so many ways, so many aspects. Not only the physical suffering, but there's the suffering of, originates primarily in the mind. Confusion, anguish, frustration, and so forth. So our practice is to allow the radiation of basic goodness. We'll see how that can begin to happen through the practice of the Four Immeasurables. So allow that radiation to happen. So that the suffering, the misery, and the sorrow of others may be lessened. So we could see how, living beings very often kind of resemble, whether they're children or adults, doesn't matter, but they kind of resemble maybe a very young child who has gone with their parents to to some fair or circus, and they get lost. They get lost in the crowd. And there's a kind of bewilderment, there's a confusion, there's a panic, there's a suffering there. And they never really, that child will not overcome their sorrow, their panic, their frustration until they are back in the arms of the parent, the kind parent. So we have to, I think, sometimes imagine that we are like that good parent. And other beings are really rather quite lost, quite lost in their confusions, their desires, their hatreds, aversions, their neurosis, basically, their insanity, which we all share, but maybe some of us are a bit more aware of it than others. But that makes a big difference when we begin to be aware of what is happening, not blindly just going through it. The monk who gave the talk last night at Tushita, he and I were having breakfast this morning with the director of Tushita, Dr. Renuka Singh, and she was reminiscing about her first meeting with Lama Yeshe, our founder. And she managed to get 15 minutes with him when she had been told that he had no time. But he gave her time at the end of our Dharma celebration in Delhi, where we had hosted His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And she couldn't remember everything that was said, obviously, but the main thing Lama kept on emphasizing was to generate awareness, to generate awareness, proper awareness, because without awareness, we are somehow adrift. We don't know what's happening. We can be pulled this way and that way. So anyway, we generate awareness. And we generate a deep sense of sorrow as well as kindness towards the vast majority of beings who are suffering, but not really properly aware of themselves, their minds, why they suffer, what might be the remedy, if any. No idea. And in fact, chasing after very short-term remedies. All of them, those remedies are somehow outside of the person. Chasing other people, chasing drugs, chasing food, chasing money, chasing fame, and so forth. Status, praise, chasing all the time the appreciation of others, and so forth. Anyway, so remember the beings. You might find it useful to remember some people you know well who are having a very hard time in their lives. And think how wonderful it would be if one could do something to help. And then I think now in this session, I'm going to generate some of the causes that may enable me to be of great benefit to myself as well as others. We'll start with the stabilizing practice to calm the mind. So we engage in this by putting our attention on the breath, but in a gentle way, not in a very forced or sort of life and death manner, but a very gentle but precise awareness on the sensation of breath as we breathe in and out. Sensation at the tip of our nostrils. And we just stay with that, but with a light touch. And allow ourselves to relax with the out-breath. Sense of letting go with the out-breath. When thoughts and so forth arise, recognize, gently let go, don't get involved, let go, and come back to the breath. As soon as we notice thoughts have intruded, we simply recognize, we let go back to the breath. We're not striving for any kind of perfection. We're not pushing ourselves. But on the other hand, we're not allowing ourselves to just become dull and careless either. So there's a sense of being alert and awake, but without tension. Okay. Slowly come out of that particular meditative space, but of course, you can still maintain a sense of awareness. So we may have noticed during that how easy it is for the mind to wander, to leak, to lose the main object, which in this case is the breath, and go elsewhere, the past, into the future, into all kinds of interesting labyrinths. and some disturbing, some exciting, some neutral maybe, some repetitive. And what stops it just being an exercise in just total lack of restraint and free for all is the awareness. It's the awareness that brings us back. Which in Buddhism, well, it's talked at great length, but we could divide it into two things right now: mindfulness and introspection. So mindfulness is like keeps an eye on the main object, that we're still with the main object that we're supposed to remember, in this case, the breath. And introspection, or sampradnya in Sanskrit, is investigating whether, for example, the mind has become dull or the mind has become excited, meaning dull, meaning lost the focus and is just beginning to get sleepy and so forth, or whether the mind is excited and having lots of thoughts and is getting caught up in them, and being very restless like that. So introspection check lets us know what's happening, and then we take remedial measures to bring us back to some balance by, in the case of sleepiness, by adjusting the posture, opening the eyes wide a bit, taking a few deep breaths, bringing the attention up to the nostrils. In extreme cases, we might have to stop meditating, and if we're too tired or just drowsy, we can splash our face with water and so forth. But sometimes we don't need to do all that. We can simply adjust the posture and take a few deep breaths and remember, the object. With dullness, with excitement, then we need to slow the mind down by bringing the awareness down, lowering the body to the abdomen, and we could focus on the abdomen for a while, or the rise and fall of the abdomen. And one way that some meditators work here is to, they would reflect briefly on death, impermanence and death. That could lessen the excitement and restlessness in the mind by remembering that, everything's changing and we don't have limitless time left and we're going to die. So that can help the mind to become a little sober when it has become very excited and restless. Anyway, the other beautiful thing, a possible wonderful thing about this practice is the ability to not take any of the thoughts that arise that seriously. We just see them as thoughts and we let them go and we come back to the breath. It's like saying, okay, it doesn't matter, We don't need to pay it too much mind. It's like the example we've given before, being at a railway station, we're waiting for our passenger train, but a goods train comes past with so many wagons on the goods trains. They can be very, very long. So the wagons come and go, and we're just observing the wagons coming and going, and we're not getting caught up, or excited about any of the wagons. I mean, there's no very exciting things to be seen there anyway. There's no beautiful people at the windows. There's no windows in these wagons. They just come and go. So we just kind of watch and then let it go. Watch the next one, let it go. We don't get caught up in it. And that's something quite, what shall I say, restful, not getting caught up in things with likes and dislikes and so forth. attachment or pushing away. So that brings us to the first immeasurable, which we can begin to look at. Immeasurable equanimity. So our mind right now, as the speaker told us on Friday, Venerable Priyadarshi had said on Friday, that basically we're all involved in a kind of tribalism. He used the word tribalism. Meaning, in the old days, or still of course, we were divided into tribes, and tribes had to be, always on the lookout for danger, on the lookout for potential sources of food, etc., etc. So there had to be a very strong feeling of connection and identification with the group, with the tribe. So that is what still dominates how we think in many cases. I've been myself, of course, those of us who've been brought up in different cultures in our life at one time or another can see a bit more sometimes these things. But I was always surprised in India and actually in general how clannish and tribal we can be in terms of families and their little groups of clubs, members, castes. It's like when you go out with a family to eat or something, and unless you see some friends, you kind of keep your attention to within the family, right? And you talk with them. You don't unnecessarily reach out to somebody and talk to somebody else or make usually, some comment or something to somebody outside your group. You don't get usually interested or into conversation with people outside your group. And in certain circles, if you are with that group and then you start showing interest in, say, a stray animal or something, then that can feel very strange to the group. It may be not approved at all. Anyway, the point is, we're very caught up with our little groups, our little cliques and clans, our little tribes, and the people who we feel sustain us or are good for us, or whom we are identifying with for a long time, to the exclusion of other people, so that, as one meditator very beautifully put it, for most of us, apart from a few well-known or liked or familiar people, everybody else is just like shapes and forms, and colors moving around somewhere in the background, almost one-dimensional, just shapes and colors moving around, whom we don't really have much time for or care for. We only use them to the extent that they are useful for us. If they're, a waiter or a gas station attendant, then of course we need their input. But otherwise, they're just beings in the background, aren't they? We don't much. Of course, some of us may be different temperamentally. We are aware of other people more, and whoever they are. In fact, but mostly, other people are just in the background. And nowadays, of course, we're so taken up with our technologies and our gadgets that we're just not paying attention to other people anyway, In fact, it's got even tighter and a smaller bubble than tribalism. It's just me and my smartphone kind of thing, a lot of the time. So where does that leave other people? We don't really have much feeling for other people, perhaps. And if we do, we don't allow it to stay. We're quickly distracted. So we could say lack of attention really is enemy of the immeasurables, all of the immeasurables, because we need to pay attention in order to see clearly and experience clearly why there is this teaching on immeasurable equanimity, which is, as you may remember, put in these words that, how wonderful it would be if all living beings were to abide in equanimity, not feeling close to some and distant from others, not feeling aversion and attachment. How wonderful it would be if they were to abide in equanimity, not having that push-pull of anger, aversion, attachment, energy. So how do we go about that? I mean, in a thorough way, we can go about it intellectually, of course. That is very easy, comparatively easy. We just think about how everyone wants to be happy, no one wants to suffer. We think about the shortcomings of attachment, the shortcomings of anger and aversion, how they harm us, how they harm others. So that's not very difficult to engage in intellectually, is it? But we need to go deeper. So how do we go deeper? We need to pay more attention to what we are thinking and reflecting on here. So if we start with the premise, which again we have to spend some time on, let's start with the premise. Let's start with the experiment, the thought experiment, that starting with oneself, which is always a good place to start, all of us should think, I have feelings and sensations within this mechanism which we call a person, right? Combination of body and mind. I have these feelings, I have sensations. No one can deny that. And they are connected with eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch organs that we have, and the consciousness is connected with those faculties, okay? And we can divide in terms of feelings, to keep it simple and the classical Buddhist way, we divide into pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Okay, pleasant feelings, neutral, and unpleasant feelings. So, do I have experience of that? Bring to mind something that you would call a pleasant feeling, experience. Just bring it to mind, whatever it is, the physical level, emotional level, mental level. What is a pleasant feeling for you? Pleasant sensation? Could be anything. I mean, for me, I'm not thinking of the Coca-Cola, which I very rarely drink, but I ordered on the flight today. I was so thirsty, didn't have water, and really wanted a Coca-Cola, so I had one. No rum, but there was Coca-Cola. Okay, so I had the Coca-Cola. Very pleasant sensation, very pleasant. Although it was unpleasant at the beginning, because they have these weird cans which you open a certain way. The thing broke, so then the thing came off, but the can was unopened, so I punctured it with a pen. Anyway, that was unpleasant sensation for a while and a sense of annoyance, but then it quickly gave way to a pleasant sensation of drinking this cool Coca-Cola. So as it entered my body, to the mouth, I felt satisfaction, pleasant. All of us have had pleasant sensations. I hope you had some pleasant sensations today. They weren't all unpleasant or neutral. But now think of an unpleasant sensation or feeling that you had today or recently. Could be anything. From, physical sensation, mental sensation, the unpleasantness of feeling you have misplaced something, you can't find it, and you really need that thing, key or whatever. Or the unpleasantness of feeling very full. You've ordered your favorite food, but you begin to feel full halfway through or before, and then eating the rest of it is like painful, and that's sad because you really wanted to enjoy all the meal, your favorite meal. That's unpleasant. Starts off pleasant. And then there are neutral things, neutral sights, sounds, tastes, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So we need to agree that we all have these experiences of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. We have to ground what we're going to do in this realization. So we can't say, I'm different, I'm a different species from the rest of humanity. You can't say that. Well, I'm special. So the thing is here that we feel close to some people and we don't like other people. But when we look at what actually is the same for all of us, which unites all of us, it is that we all have pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings. So check if this might be the case, not only for you, but for your good friend. First, take a good friend, your best friend, maybe, someone you regard that way. Do they have pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings? If they're a good friend whom you know very well, then of course you know exactly also what for them is pleasant, what is unpleasant. And sometimes, what is pleasant for you is not pleasant for them. For you, butterscotch ice cream is pleasant, and for them it's not. So neutral or even unpleasant. They prefer something else. So anyway, you know that they have certain pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, sensations. Sensation in the body, or feelings, which also extend to mental feelings in the mind. Like hope, fear, joy, happiness, whatever. Different. So that's, if we were to begin extending this, it might be quite interesting. People who meet normally and formally just kept in the background as what we have been calling just shapes and colors moving around, they take on more life somehow when we attribute to them the same kind of experiences that we have ourselves. So this person, sitting 4 or 5 rows ahead of you in the airplane, whom you saw coming in and sat down, and maybe you formed already some opinion about them, like, dislike, or just neither, or interested in them, not interested in them at all, or neutral. Well, there are people who have feelings. They might be thirsty like you. They might be having an unpleasant sensation, a pleasant sensation, a pleasant memory. They might have just had a wonderful reunion with friends in the town you're leaving. They might have had a wonderful meal which they enjoyed. They had pleasant sensations, and they're sad at leaving their friends. It's slightly unpleasant. So then we begin to see if we extend this, everybody is that way. The persons who are, waiting to come onto the plane as you leave, waiting to come in to clean up. It's kind of anonymous people in this case, the indigo uniform, coming onto the plane. We couldn't care less about them, could we, really? But they're people who might have had very, very strong, pleasant, unpleasant feelings, sensations, happening for them very recently. Yeah. Just like me, just like, my best friend. Just the same. They may have experienced tremendous sadness at the loss of something or someone. But we somehow couldn't care less. We just, already our mind is at the, baggage collection place, hoping that our baggage is going to be there and in one piece and so forth. We're not caring about the people who go past at all. So we could do this with so many people. Everybody we pass, toilet attendant, a person in the shop, the people, a multitude of travelers coming and going past us, whether in an airport or in the street, on the metro, wherever. Every single one of them who has a body and mind and is not just some kind of fancy, whatever, Japanese walking robot, all of them have feelings and sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Every single one. Isn't that something? They're not just background figures, And yet we divide them up: friends, enemies, strangers. Most of them strangers, couldn't care less. So this is one way to begin investigating, thinking about people in that way. Every single person, animal you can think of, even a very basic level, they have some kind of sensation which is pleasant, unpleasant. How are we doing for time? So this is one angle. I'm just looking right now at the first immeasurable equanimity. How wonderful it would be if all beings were to abide in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion, not feeling close to some and distant from others. Of course, we'll always feel close to some people, and that's not a fault. The point is, if it's excluding others and making us overly attached and obsessed about certain people and just not caring about others, then it's a problem. And if we are obsessed with our likes and dislikes regarding certain people or whatever, that's going to be a hindrance to us, even with worldly happiness, let alone deep spiritual understanding and joy. Because if we're attached to certain people, then there's no way that people, however wonderful they are going to be able to fulfill all of our wishes, our desires, our expectations. Because external objects, people just cannot do that. It has to be found within us. We cannot rely on external factors. At some point, the chocolate runs out, kind of thing. So the other thing to consider is the change, impermanence. What we are attached to, what we don't like, it changes. The situation changes, the beings change, our attitude changes, but for sure, things are going to change. And the people we care so much about or make such a big fuss about, the people we hate, it's all going to finish. That particular movie is going to finish one day. Like a long movie, like a long Bollywood movie, but it's going to end. And then it's like everything was like a dream. Not very well remembered dream, or even a forgotten dream. Bob Dylan even sings, all the people I used to know, they're an illusion to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how all that started, don't know what they're doing with their lives. This is from this great song, Tangled Up in Blue. So yeah, you see, everything changes. Everything is changing. All the relationships we have are changing. If we had the clairvoyance to see our past lives, it would be mind-boggling for us. It would blow our minds. The different connections. And there are famous sections in the sutras on this, how Shariputra with his clairvoyance could see certain things. Excuse me. How a certain situation where there was a father and mother and a child on the lap, and they were eating fish and giving the bones of the fish to the family dog. Shariputra could see how those beings had been related to each other in past lives differently, how even one was eating a person who had previously been, mother or father. And he kind of laughed when he saw that. It's a famous quote from some sutra. I can't remember the relationships, but if we were to give a bone or meat to a dog, from the Buddhist perspective, we are giving part of somebody who was very close to us in some way in a past life to this, to a dog or cat or whatever now, or eating the flesh of someone we were very close to in their past continuum of their consciousness. Anyway, so things change dramatically, as we know, moment to moment. Moment to moment, they change. Bring this to mind. We've all had friends that we become distant from, I suppose. Things that started pleasant, then they turned very unpleasant. Some of you may have been through all that, through divorces and things. So there's an example of how the person you thought was, God's answer to you, or your soulmate, turned into your fiercest enemy, someone who embodies Satan for you, you know. So this happens. Attachment can change very quickly into aversion, as with a pleasant meal. If your greed was more than your hunger, then even your favorite food, start eating, quickly becomes suffering. Quickly, very quickly. And especially, you know, if it's been cooked by someone who cares for you, or you care for them, and they're really hoping that you finish it and that you love it, you know, it's your favorite, and you can't eat much at all, you know. So there's a suffering of that, trying to fulfill the expectation of some other person, and not happening. Anyway, what we're trying to say is impermanence. Things change. So why are we so besotted? It's okay to be besotted, but then to believe in it and think this is going to last, or this is the answer, that is the fallacy. That's the stupidity. That's the ignorance. And then the person you don't like, they could be someone you started off liking, or somebody later you could like. You could develop some fondness for that person, isn't it? Whom you started off by disliking. I've had that experience several times with people. But of course, the tragedy is sometimes we have to fake the closeness in the wrong way. You know, you're in a relationship, in a marriage, in some club or situation, and you know you can't get out of it that easily. It would be too much trouble. You have to fake some kind of, like, you know, unity, some kind of tribalism, where you just want to be out of it, out of that situation. So then we need to investigate what would help us, apart from what we've looked at already, what else would help us to generate a sense of kind of, equanimity, feeling equally concerned for everybody, for everybody's happiness, for example, for everybody's suffering, and not just people close to us, you know, and not have this mind of rejection of, actually rejection of most of humanity, not just the people we don't like, but the strangers, in a sense, we're also just pushing aside, aren't we? We don't care about them. One is amazed somehow by how much we neglect people who are actually doing things for us which are useful, like the person who wipes the table for you or brings your water or food. I just kind of ignore them. We just carry on with our conversations and so pretend they're not there, you know, very often. It's strange. And you may have noticed when you begin to talk to somebody whom people very rarely talk to because they're a different station or class, or their job is to serve, not to be spoken to. When you do speak to them, they can be very happy. Initially, a little surprised maybe, or subdued, but often very happy to be spoken to, you know, as somebody who is acknowledged, cared for by so-called superior whom you are serving. Hmm. So I'll just repeat the verse, and then that puts it in some perspective. What are we actually praying for with this? We're saying, in the Mahayana context of immeasurable equanimity, what we're saying is, the words at least are, how wonderful it would be if all beings were to abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion, free of feeling close to some and distant from others. May all beings abide in such equanimity. I myself will enable them to abide in such equanimity. Please, Guru Buddhas, bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do this. That's the fourfold process in the Mahayana equanimity. Yeah, from how wonderful it would be to, may it be, and then I myself will do something to enable beings to be in this way and, to abide in that way. And then, please, then we invoke the inspiring strength of the lineage of our teachers, of those who inspire us, because we realize we need help in this initially. We can't do it all alone so easily. We need inspiration, guidance of people who have already achieved this very marvelous state of mind, of equanimity. Any comments so far? What is this? Read the book on work for women empowerment in Buddhism. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, empowerment of women. Okay, so this is obviously being posted in context of equanimity, huh? Is it? Or in the sense of equality. So any comments on what we've looked at so far? Which has been a kind of a strolling analytical meditation. I hope it doesn't come across as a lecture. It wasn't supposed to be a lecture, for heaven's sake. It's supposed to be a contemplation. I hope I didn't make that totally clear, did I? It's supposed to be reflecting together on this, not a pulpit sermon. Any feedback so far? In any case, we won't be doing much more than another 15-20 minutes. Nothing? Okay. So then we can go on to, there's much more one could reflect on in terms of equanimity. Equanimity in terms of time, changes, impermanence, a life-to-life situation, how it changes drastically from life to life, and of course, even within a few hours or days or months or years of the human life. So that to have this tribalism in the sense of tremendous closeness with some and, aversion and anger even towards others seems so childish somehow, so petty, so short term, so unaware of the bigger picture, if you like. And I suppose a lot of what we practice is to see things in another perspective, the bigger picture. And of course, the bigger picture is also that everybody is in the jaws of the Lord of Death. And everybody who's not enlightened or not yet a bodhisattva, let's say, also are just so confused, so caught up in their own tamashas, we would say in Hindi. We're all here, I think all Indian people here, so we're all familiar with tamasha, our own circus, our own, making mountains out of molehill process, We're all involved in that. We all have bias and so forth, governed by disturbing emotions. They disturb the peace of the mind. So what a disturbing emotion is, it disturbs the peace of the mind, the natural peace of the mind, the basic goodness we spoke about at the beginning. That gets covered over, that gets obscured by the disturbing emotions. So the second immeasurable, let's take immeasurable loving kindness. So here the formula would be how wonderful it would be if all beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have happiness and its causes. I myself will enable them to have happiness and its causes. And please, Guru Buddhas, bestow your inspiring strength, your blessings to enable me to do this. So here we're talking about enabling beings, wishing for beings to have the long-term happiness of this and future lives. At least to have happiness rather than immediate pain and sorrow and suffering. So this begins to, I suppose, arise when we have a sense of how all beings, whether friends, enemies, or strangers, are all suffering, are all wishing for happiness, are all having these different kind of sensations and are definitely wishing for the happy, pleasant sensations and feelings. So therefore, when we wish beings to have happiness and its causes, actually, can we see how we are kind of aligning ourselves with reality, with the way things are? If we were to have the prayer, immeasurable love, it was somehow how wonderful it would be if all beings had unhappiness and the causes of unhappiness. That would be stupid. That's just not in alignment with the way things are. There wouldn't probably be any place in the universe where that would apply. So the formula, may all sentient beings, how wonderful it would be if they all had happiness and its causes, is totally in alignment with truth, the truth of our experience. Whether it be a slug or a snail, or zebra or hippopotamus, or a human being in any place on the planet. And then the other also beings that we can't see, which Buddha definitely said existed, and which Buddha could see. The God realms and the dissatisfied, hungry ghost realm and the hell realms, where if you are attentive to the speaker yesterday at the end, talking about how 99.99% of beings are in states of suffering, deep suffering, realms outside of the human realm. So the wish for them to have happiness and its causes could become something very profound if we had a feeling for those other realms. If you're someone who is very much concerned with, pays attention to let's say, animal rights, animal suffering, then when you hear something like the, immeasurable loving kindness, it really means something to you in terms of the animals. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. That really means something, because you see how much they lack happiness, And of course, the compassion immeasurable also becomes highly charged and powerful. But when you see beings bereft of happiness, especially when oneself may be feeling quite buoyant or happy or well-adjusted, for whatever reason, combination of reasons, then when you see other people who are not happy, not happy at all, confused, unhappy, always looking on somehow the disturbing or dark side of things, then you really, this prayer makes some impact, no? May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. So the causes of happiness becomes important, right? So basically the cause is wholesomeness, wholesome actions. The body, speech, and mind lead to happiness. Training the mind, training ourselves in clarity and openness and kindness, that makes us happy. Giving into our neuroses, to our selfish attitudes, that's the recipe for suffering, according to the Dharma. So, yeah, that becomes very powerful if we've done good meditation on suffering and how beings are bereft of happiness. Then it becomes something powerful. Otherwise, it's just more words, isn't it? But when you see or you read a very good article or author who's obviously very deeply getting into the lives of his or her subjects in the book or whatever, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, and then you can feel for them, you really feel for them. Or you see a good documentary on animals or humans, what they go through, then it makes some impact. Yeah, how wonderful if they had happiness and the causes of happiness, which they don't have right now because of the ignorance and the disturbing emotions in their minds and the karmic consequences they're having to face from their previous actions. Then after a while, I think we'll find we can extend it to anybody. We don't have the kind of bias that, oh, I hate this person, or I hate Putin because of this, or I hate someone else because of that, what they're doing. Then you just see everyone as a disturbed, suffering being who are without happiness, without comfort. And that's one major reason why they behave the way they do. Of course, if they're powerful, their actions have more consequences. That's obvious. But if they weren't so powerful, they'd just be a petty little dictator at home, with their family or whatever. If you have the power, if you're head of a country, then, big problem for many people, many other countries. So anyway, immeasurable loving kindness, of course, means just that. It's towards everybody. You don't leave even one person out or one kind of animal. You may not like scorpions or spiders, but maybe one could get to a place where we don't feel we want them to suffer. We want them to be happy. I doubt scorpions bite in a state of happiness. They bite because they're upset, angry, or just aggressive, searching for food, or reacting to danger, being startled, or whatever. So we wish them, the happier scorpions are, maybe the less they will sting. Who knows? They won't have more occasions to sting. Anyway, especially with humans, don't you think it's unhappy, disturbed humans who, create the most damage, the most disturbance? So yeah, we must wish for them to have more happiness. They will then disturb others less. If great, huge, powerful world leaders were really happy, fulfilled people, yeah, I think it would make a big difference to the policies they would enact. And they might even want to cooperate with one another, rather than bomb the shit out of each other, which is what's happening in Ukraine right now. Big escalation of bombardments and killing, and both sides. And creating horrific karma for the future. Anyway, let's have some more feedback before we end. All this is food for thought and for more reflection, and for you to look at more texts. There's a book by Alan Wallace on the Four Immeasurables. B. Alan Wallace, the foremost Western scholar, that. And you can find material on the Four Immeasurables in the works of a very great Lama, Tai Situ Rinpoche. So if you were to Google some of these things, you would find some very good material on Lama like that. Situ Rinpoche, S-I-T-U. But again, it's something we have to reflect on and meditate on ourselves. However great the Lama and their teaching, that may inspire us for a while, but then we have to, I think, start with our feelings of happiness, unhappiness, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and really think about how everybody, every being on the planet and in the universe has these same experiences of one kind or another. Okay, the spider or scorpion may not have the sophistication of experience that we humans have, obviously, but they also have unpleasant, pleasant, and neutral sensations, I'm sure. Just by virtue of having, body and consciousness, they're going to have that. And one might think, what a disturbed, horrible state of mind to be forever, almost one's whole life, in a state of either sleep or waiting for prey to fall into your net, into your web, into your, field of vision or smell, and then you kill it and eat it. What a state of consciousness to have. Modern equivalent, like a sniper just waiting to pick people off with your sniper's gun, except most snipers aren't cannibals as well, So yeah, the suffering of the animal realm. Waiting, killing, and eating the being you've killed. So that's one wishes for them to be free of that and to have a higher kind of evolved life. I keep on talking when I say I'm going to stop. So please, somebody say something. And I kept on talking because if I stopped talking, I'd have gone to sleep probably. So I hope what I said wasn't too dull and without logic. Vishad Bhai, was it without logic what I said, or was there some logic you could discern?
Made a lot of sense, Kabirji.
Yeah, I hope you're not just being polite.
No. Kabirji, I was wondering, you um, talked about past. We When something passes away, it feels like a dream, right?
Yeah.
Um, how is that related to this topic? I couldn't understand that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Would you feel so attached or averse to people or things when you realize that they are in a state of disintegration and are going to disappear from your life, and one day will be a memory or even forgotten? The person you may obsess over or hate right now in some way, you may even have kind of forgotten about them by the time you're 18, 90, or about to die. Doesn't that make attachment and aversion seem very stupid, or put them in perspective as modes of operating and all of the tribalism that leads to? Doesn't it make it seem a bit strange when you remember that everything is changing, coming to an end?
Yeah, logically, it makes sense.
Logically, yeah, I agree. Yeah, emotionally, it takes longer because you still feel, I don't like that person, or, I love that person, I want to be with that person. Sure, they're going to die, but yeah, they're not going to die yet, Sure, that they're going to look like an old man or woman one day, very old, but not yet, you know?
And they're also changing moment by moment, right?
Yeah, or the person might have an accident and you don't even want to look at their face, No one wants to look at their face. So then what? Does our love go beyond that? If a person we love has a bad accident and half their face is burned off, do we still feel great love and affection for that person? Or do we just feel aversion? We're very governed by our senses, no? Especially the sense of sight. Sight is very powerful. And I guess if we're blind, then, I don't know, maybe touch and smell become very important. Sound. All the other senses maybe become. They must have done studies on this, but I haven't read them. Is that a question from Bob?
Bob is distributing food offering prayers.
Food offering what?
Prayers.
Prayers like
Prayers.
Prayers. Prayers. Oh, how wonderful. That's kind of him. Why is he doing that? Does he have any food to offer?
He has re-offered the food that was offered.
First time in 20.
He has not bought his delicious samosas.
because my Indian economy is bankrupt. I'm so happy that.
Hey, well, why don't you lead the prayers, Bob and Sonaliji? Sure, we'll join you online. We'll join you from here, wherever we are.
23 years of experience.
You want to do the prayer?
You want to do the prayer?
You have to do it with the proper tune, though.
In
Yeah, I remember all the tunes.
maybe you can pull up a cushion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done, Bob.
Acha.
Bob is going to be a choir leader.
Come here. ये आपके लिए यहीं बैठ जाओ आप. मैं इधर बैठ जाऊँ.
First time in 23 years.
This is very unusual for Bob to take this initiative. Well done, Bob.
Yeah. And this discourse has been with more clarity than when you are here. You're looking so handsome.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Most.
You are looking like Dujum Rinpoche, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah,
great.
with your glasses, you look like Dujum Rinpoche. Yeah. Anyway, carry on, do the prayers. Yeah.
The food is offering.
Well, that's what you've been handing out. Why are you doing that?
Okay. So I'm doing it in Tibetan first and then I'll in English.
Very good. Very good.
Dezin lama ge dunte kungi jepo lama te lama nam la sho pa bul. So in English it will be the Guru is Buddha, the Guru is Dharma, the Guru is Sangha also. The Guru is the creator of all happiness. To all Gurus I make this offering. Offering food and drink to the three jewels. Razo, Ko, Sha, Ze, Rab, Tham, Cha, Du.
That we usually just do in English, Bob. That
Okay.
next prayer. Yeah.
May we and those around us in all future lives never be separated from the three jewels. Continuously make offerings to the three jewels and receive the inspiration of the three jewels. To the Supreme Teacher, the precious Buddha, to the Supreme Refuge, the precious Dharma, to the Supreme Guides, the precious Sangha, to the Triple Gem, the objects of refuge, I make prayer. I make offering.
Thank you. So now you should eat.
Yeah.
You should
Thank you.
hand out. There's a packet of unopened gazak or something from Morena or Jaipur.
Okay.
So that's at the back. You guys should enjoy that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, there is
Rest
also.
rest of us voice. Yeah.
Since our friend from Canada is here for the first time, and Canadians are
Yes.
more interesting people than Americans. That's correct.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
very true.
Because as neighbors they don't get along well.
No.
But some of the Canadians are very famous, like Shania Twain,
Hey, yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Carrey.
Jim Carrey, Justin Bieber.
Yeah, Justin Bieber.
Yeah,
Justin Bieber.
Pamela Anderson.
Pamela Anderson. She's also from.
Yeah.
Very good. So you enjoy your food, and we'll maybe we should dedicate before
Okay,
this,
first dedication, you can
before
do
the party. It looks like you guys are going to have a party, which is great.
just some
Wish I was-
calorie
Wish I
inputs.
was there, but anyway, you enjoy.
Are you returning?
I think Sonali is still getting these items for you.
Yeah.
Maybe she's tasting.
After the dedication.
The dedication.
Okay. So, okay. So now today we again looked at immeasurable equanimity and began to look at immeasurable loving kindness. So we may be getting a slight understanding of what this is about. And basically it's about dissolving the barriers between ourselves and others and opening up and seeing that I'm not the only special person in the universe, you see. Everybody is special. Everybody wants happiness, doesn't want suffering, whoever they are, you know. So hopefully we get some taste of that. So we dedicate that we may understand and put into practice these four wonderful immeasurables, and that the precious holy Dharma may last for a very long time in this universe, that we may never be separated from authentic Dharma and authentic teachers, that the authentic teachers have very long and healthy lives and all their holy wishes are fulfilled. Then we can dedicate that our lives become wish-fulfilling and meaningful, beneficial for others, so that if anybody has any connection with us whatsoever, any kind of contact with us whatsoever, even if they're trying to kill us, but may that connection prove beneficial for them long term. Okay, so in that sense, may our presence be beneficial for others. We should pray in that way. That's what the medicine Buddhas did. And that's why their practice became so beneficial for beings. And they were able to bestow so much benefit on beings, suffering beings. So we should also dedicate like that. We should dedicate for all the centers to be very successful in spreading the holy dharma and bringing great satisfaction and peace to the minds of beings. We must pray for human beings who are at the moment hell-bent on simply killing each other, that they may there may be some change of mind, some change of heart in the leaders, so they may see some more common sense and see the interdependence of all of us, and how destroying another country, or part of it anyway, is not going to lead to future happiness for everyone. So like that, may world leaders develop more wisdom and more loving kindness. And meanwhile, may all of us, all the Sangha, be well and happy and harmonious, and enjoy healthy lives, long lives, if possible, if beneficial. And all the circumstances for continuing to study, reflect, and meditate on the Dharma, may those circumstances always be there. Okay, wonderful. So we will leave the happy tribe of Tushita Wallas who are at Tushita with their wonderful offerings and so forth. And we will bid good night to everybody. And thank you very much. Our next session will be Thursday evening. Again, live from Bodh Gaya. And we'll see, there may be a link up at Tushita also, like today. Thank you, those who came to Tushita, especially for the first time. I hope it's useful for you, and the sweets or whatever you are being fed are good quality. Yeah, so thank you everybody very much. Good night.